Hey, hi everyone. Thanks for joining. We'll wait for some more time, maybe till 3 5 for more of the folks to join. I'm Pinkasha from Pascare. All right. So it's 3 p.m. And thanks to everyone who's joining and who's already joined. Since the topic of today's session is procrastination and why do we indulge in procrastination and so many reasons that lead to it, I did not want to procrastinate anymore and wanted to start this as soon as we can. And we also have with us our host who will be hosting our event today. She's called Amatullah and she's based in Bombay. But I'll still wait for another 2 minutes for all of us to settle in. We would love if you could have a pen and paper handy, which would also help us go through this session, which is hosted by her. Let me give you a brief introduction of Amatullah while we are all here. So, Amatullah is a neurodivergent and a queer psychologist. She's based in Bombay. Uh, Her approach to therapy is more from an intersectional perspective that is taking into account the social, biological, and psychological needs of the client. I would handle it. I would hand over this event to Amatullah now. Amatullah, if you would like to switch on your video, start the session, do a brief introduction of yourself again if I missed out on anything, and what do you do? Feel free to do that. Over to you, Amatullah.
Hi, can you uh, adjust the settings? I can't switch on my camera.
Oh, okay. Um, Let me see if I can. Uh, can you try now?
Yeah, yeah, it's working. Hi.
Really good to see you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amatullah, and welcome to this session. I'll be sharing my screen. So if anybody can tell me if they can see it, that'd be great.
Yep, I can see your screen. So, folks, let's use the chat
Awesome.
and raise our hand icon, which is available on all your screens to indulge in conversations. We'll make sure that this session is interactive. Amatullah, I'm here to help you out. If you need any help, feel free to tell me where you need my help. I can see your screen
Yeah,
now.
sure.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
whenever you're ready.
yeah.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amatullah, and welcome to our session today. As Pinkasha introduced me, I'm a junior psychotherapist at Break Through Counselling. And now, before we begin, I just have a few general rules that I would like to talk about. So, while we're waiting for others to come in, please mute your microphone unless you're prompted to unmute. I understand you can't turn on your cameras, but this is aimed to be a safe space for all, so please be kind to each other. Okay? I'm just going to talk you through some of the contents that we're going to be talking about today. Talking through procrastination in daily life. What causes procrastination? The external and internal factors. How perfectionism is actually an illusion, and how self compassion is your most unlikely but your most important tool in your schedule. So, let me get started. When I talk about procrastination or the act of putting off something really important or really urgent until the last moment, I know that it's a very common issue for all of us. Procrastination, low motivation, all of this can usually be considered a clinical symptom, but it's not always a pathological sign. Only when procrastination and low motivation is very, very chronic, meaning it continues for a really long time, and it is accompanied by a bunch of other issues, do we think that it's a significant mental health issue. Now, I'm going to start off this presentation with a little bit of self disclosure. I procrastinated so much while making this presentation. The issue is that despite knowing how important and necessary this task was, I struggled with starting. And once I started, I struggled with completing it. So if anyone can drop down their own instances of procrastination in the chat box, please feel free to do that. I would love to read a few. I Are there any instances anybody can type something?
I don't see anyone typing yet, but if I see it, I'll let you know.
Yeah. Okay. So, if you're trying to solve this problem, that is, in this case, chronic procrastination, I believe it's incredibly important to understand why these problems exist in the first place. I mean, we tend to attribute this phenomenon of procrastination to things like incompetence. I see somebody has raised their hand.
Yeah. I see a few answers. Someone writes my whole life. Someone writes unable to complete work reports, mainly because I go
Mhm.
through them very fast. And when I start, but I lose the motivation halfway through. Um, then we have Lakshmi who says, I procrastinate even while having my lunch.
Okay.
Sometimes sometimes I do. It is not important how my manager feels, if it's important in some cases. Then
Mhm.
we have another answer saying delaying on deliverables up to the last date in spite of having enough time. So very, very relevant cases of procrastination. Yeah.
Thank you so much for those examples. So, like I was saying, we tend to attribute this entire phenomenon of procrastination to things like incompetence. You're not doing the work because you just don't know how to do it, or you're being lazy, or you're not capable of finishing the task in the correct manner or the right way. I have some science for you that actually disproves a lot of these criticisms. Let's consider what kind of factors affect our ability to focus and what factors lower our motivation to work. I mean, some common complaints that I've had while working at Breakthrough is sleep dysfunction, not sleeping enough, not getting enough sleep, or sleeping too much. Then you have monotonous and uninteresting work. Sometimes it happens to me looking at the same email or looking at the same Excel sheet every single day can become really, really tiring. And it's so monotonous. Another common complaint that I get is reduced attention span. I mean, we've all seen TikToks, we've all seen Reels, we've all seen YouTube Shorts. All of these are so attention grabby, and all of this content on social media has permanently altered what is now known as the attention economy. That is, by keeping our attention spans really short, social media calls us back. We keep wanting to go back to our phones. We keep wanting to doom scroll. That's why it's more easy to watch 50 reels a day than to read 5 pages of a book. Now, I've talked about phenomenons, but let's look at the biology or the physiology of the brain. Let's talk a little about executive functioning and a little bit of executive dysfunction. Executive functioning is an umbrella term that we use, and it's a basic term for our set of skills that our brain helps us carry out on a daily basis. Now, some of these is planning ahead for things, like a to do list, being able to organize pieces of information in our mind, like separating what I've learned in physics class versus what I've learned in English, inhibiting certain actions. Now, this ability that we have of not walking on the crosswalk when there is a red light, red signal on, and initiating certain actions. That is, we know that the moment that signal turns green, we're supposed to cross the road or we're supposed to drive. Managing time properly. That is something that is very common. Time management is something that is so important, and it's the crux of forming a schedule and so much more. On the other hand, executive dysfunction is the complete opposite. Your brain struggles and cannot complete certain tasks that you've mentally set up for yourself. Executive dysfunction can be caused by a variety of reasons. It is typically seen as a symptom of ADHD, where people have difficulty initiating tasks. They struggle with time blindness, meaning I do not know when did it become 6 o'clock. The last time I checked the clock, it was 12. Or they aren't able to smoothly switch between tasks. Another thing that affects our executive dysfunction is anxiety. It's brain injury, and in older folks, it tends to be issues such as Parkinson's. All this for me to explain that your behavior of procrastination can be compared to a fever or a headache. We know that it's creating a problem in your life. I mean, nobody likes a fever. But in order to address it properly, it's necessary for us to find out why this fever exists at all. Otherwise, trying to eliminate procrastination is sort of like shooting an arrow in the dark. So, I want you to think of your brain as a battlefield. You have two main characters, two main players, the limbic system or your emotion center, and your prefrontal cortex, that is your logical center. The emotion center is an ancient ruler of the brain. It's responsible for our most basic instincts like fear, pleasure, and so on. So when you feel this sudden urge to run away, or you have this instinct to not go into a dark alley at night, that is your emotion center acting up. It's super fast and super automatic. But on the other hand, we have the prefrontal cortex. That is like a wise leader trying to keep things in check. It's relatively new, so it's come relatively newer in part of evolution, and it's responsible for rational thinking, planning, decision making. So it's like it's that voice in your head that tells you, you know what, let me think this through. These parts of the brain are always interacting and they're always fighting for control. So when you're faced with a tough decision, it's this tug of war between these two instincts, where your limbic reasoning is going on your instincts, whereas your prefrontal cortex is going on logical reasoning. Okay. If anybody has any questions regarding any of this, please drop it in the chat box or drop it in the Q&A section. I'd love to answer them. So we've talked about what happens in the biology of the brain. But one thing to note is that the issue of procrastination isn't just biological, psychological, or a social fault. It just exists. The behavior just exists. We often find ourselves stuck midway through our work because we want it to be perfect. Perfectionism is a really vicious cycle. An example that I can give you is I want to start my work, but I have to start my work because I want to come up with the perfect product. But I'm also worried it won't be perfect when I actually start my work. But this task is so important to me, so I have to start it. But then I also will wait because I need it to be perfect. Okay. Again, a little bit of self disclosure. I'll tell you about my own perfectionist tendencies. When I was in college, my favorite subject used to be statistics. Although it was my favorite subject, I was not very good at it. So when I wanted to study statistics for the exam, I needed it to be in the right way. It had to be perfect. I had to have all my notes, all my books, everything. So what I would do is this anticipation of wanting it to be perfect, I would push it to the last moment. So I would reach 2 days before my exam. Now I would be worried about the paper, but I would still be so anxious about wanting to do it perfectly because I love stats that I would not even look at my textbook. That, okay, you know what, I will do it later. It's my favorite subject. I can do it whenever I want. So every time I would look at my textbook, I would be too anxious to study, but also too worried about not doing it perfectly. I would keep putting it off until I was forced to look at that textbook one day before the paper. And then eventually, what would happen? I would do a really, really subpar job of finishing my exams. And I would get really low grades. So, the whole point of my example is I tend to stop myself before I start because I'm so afraid of failing. We don't try to eliminate perfection because the very word in it, perfect. How can wanting to be perfect be bad? But unfortunately, perfectionism very rarely leads to perfect work. It's more likely to lead us away from it. So, while we're at it, let's dissect the idea of perfectionism in itself. I believe that the concept of perfectionism is sort of like a mirage. It's an illusion. It's an oasis in a desert that we can see really, really well. Like, I can imagine perfection. So we begin striving for it in an effort to protect ourselves from embarrassment, or a lot of time the common line, log kya kahenge. But from the very moment we begin to strive for this perfection, anxiety, fear, disappointment, all of it starts to catch up. Suddenly, I'm paralyzed. I can't do anything. I can't study for my statistics paper because I'm so worried about it being perfect. So I stopped taking risks because I'm so scared of meeting my own expectations and the perceived expectations of others. So while I'm striving for perfection, I've made my own expectations so unrealistic that I've become my own worst enemy. Hence, perfectionism can be toxic and it has a very close relationship with shame. But one thing to know is that once this fear of shame is dealt with, it becomes a lot easier to take risks.
Hey, could I
So
stop?
you or yeah, sure, sure.
Sorry. Very interesting question I got there. Is it any
Yeah.
way connected to the imposter syndrome?
It definitely is. Imposter syndrome is often this idea that you don't belong where you are because you're lying to everybody. In a similar way, that's why we procrastinate with tasks, because if I feel like I am lying about my position or I'm lying about my abilities, I won't do anything because then that would end up in everybody realizing that I'm lying. So it is very well connected with imposter syndrome. Thank you for that question. So we've all heard this line, I procrastinate, but it's fine. I perform better under pressure anyway. But that feeling of performing under pressure is probably an illusion. I mean, when I was researching for this particular workshop, I came across a paper, a study where a bunch of researchers tracked the performance of some college students. The kids who were procrastinators had very low stress in the start, but at the end of the semester, they had some of the highest stress levels in the entire study, and they also had the lowest grades. So that kind of defeats the entire statement, right? That I perform better under pressure because these kids definitely didn't. So another factor of procrastination often is, as I mentioned before, social media. It hampers our sleep, it hampers all of our time, and it also goes on to affect our day. I see somebody has raised their hand. So when I talk about social media, a very important thing is to ask yourself, is a structured day even achievable? I mean, we've talked about all of the problems. Let's talk about some realistic solutions. How do we structure our days? I mean, I have always heard growing up from my own mom, you need to have 8 hours of sleep. It's necessary to eat three healthy meals a day while also exercising, socializing, pursuing any hobbies, completing my work on time. And when I was a student, that also included attending lectures and doing homework. I got tired just by saying that. And I haven't even started talking about the daily schedule of those who are married, those who live alone, those who have any form of chronic illnesses, such as diabetes, blood pressure, body pain, so much, or those who take care of elderly people. Also, so they're taking care of somebody who's ill, they're also going to college, or they're also going to work at the same time. Every time I look through my Instagram feed, it makes it seem so possible to have this really proper structured day. I mean, if you've ever scrolled through Instagram or YouTube, you've come across some of these videos that are titled What I Eat in a Day, Come to University with Me, My 5 to 9 after my 9 to 5. And all of these tend to follow a very similar structure. Somebody shows us a day in their life, along with completing a plethora of tasks. And at the same time, they find a lot of time to make their own food. So this content can range from people who are medical students to office workers to influencers and so on. Now, on its own, this content is not bad. But what it does is it can have a really giant counter effect, which can lead to some people feeling like they haven't achieved enough in a day. So it can make me feel like if they can cook, clean, study, work, and do so much in a day, why can't my average day look like that as well? I mean, I want my life to look like that. I want my house to be that clean. My meals to be so elaborate that I have a dessert, I have an appetizer, I have everything cleaned. So it becomes so easy to focus on a video of somebody having a picture perfect day that it gets really easy to ignore that at the same time, the person making such content may also not have a perfect day. I mean, we're looking at one video from one day of the week. A major factor that most content doesn't even count for is, for example, neurodivergence. Now, I have ADHD. I hate routines. It becomes impossible for me to follow the same routine every day. I have three different to do lists that I follow. But eventually, following those to do lists also gets tiring, it gets boring, and I lose my motivation to do anything. So, in such conditions, the pressure of work may get to me, and then all I do is stare at a wall waiting for time to go by. Where even though I'm aware that I need to finish work, I can do nothing. This is also an example of executive dysfunction that I mentioned before. This productivity content often leads to a very big shame cycle, you know? It leads to more doubt and disappointment that an individual goes through. It can lead to an effect where somebody piles on so much work because if I can see that somebody goes to university, attends 9 lectures, still completes homework, why can't I do it? And on the other hand, all it does is for somebody else to give up. Because if another person can complete all of this, I can never do it, so I'll just give up. It's better. Another thing, things like anxiety and depression hamper our energy levels so much that they can make us want not they can make us not want to do anything at all. So oftentimes I had mentioned in the start that I'm going to talk about a very important tool in your daily scheduling, self-compassion. We often forget to include self-compassion in our daily planning. Humans are not the same. If we were, we would not be any different from robots. I mean, an essential act of self-compassion is to acknowledge the realities of your situation. By acknowledging your limitations, by acknowledging what you have, what you don't have, and not beating yourself over it, but accommodating around it, we can give ourselves plenty of opportunities to build a schedule that works for us and can actually be executed instead of an aspirational plan that we can never follow. It includes giving yourself a break and making schedules and activities in such a way that doesn't lead you to be burnt out, doesn't overwhelm you, doesn't dismiss your physical and mental fatigue. And we also don't miss out on opportunities we work so hard for. I mean, what's the point that you work hard towards a goal if you can't enjoy your goal? Being hypercritical of yourself about your productivity levels doesn't really allow yourself to set very realistic goals. And most importantly, it doesn't allow rest to be part of your productivity cycle. The essence of a schedule gets lost if we don't account for rest. A way that we at Breakthrough help our clients visualize how to make time and accommodations for rest and other factors is through something that's called energy budget. So if you have a pen and paper around you, you can make this one for yourself. We tend to have budgets for everything. I have a budget for going out. You have budgets for grocery shopping, your Netflix, Prime, all of that. So let's make a budget for our energy as well. 1 rupee is 1 unit of energy. You have 100 rupees a day. So I can spend my 100 units of energy on something. Here I have an example energy budget setup. So for example, showering takes me 15 units, 15 rupees. Working out may take 40. Eating a meal takes 15. Meeting a friend takes 20. And there is zero for rest. But you will notice that I have something on the third column that is called a bad day surcharge. We all have bad days. And on bad days, it gets even more difficult to do work. It gets even more difficult to get up, to shower, to work out. So if I add a average bad day surcharge of 20 rupees, suddenly that showering that usually takes me 15 rupees becomes 35. Working out becomes 60. Eating a meal becomes 35. And now you can see that when I add my bad day surcharge, My energy consumption is way beyond 100 rupees and I still haven't added rest. So make this sort of um, template for yourself and think about what elements of your life. You can list down 6 activities in total, 3 activities you really like, and 3 activities you dislike. And you can account for what your personal energy budget looks like. Now, this is my example energy budget. I'm going to spend 5 rupees for showering. Working out tends to take more energy for me. So I'm going to put 25 there. Eating a meal is 10. Meeting my friends is 10. But the most amount of energy for me daily goes into taking sessions. So I'm going to allocate 40 to that. But I still have managed to add 10 rupees for my resting period because it's important for me. And it's also important for me to make sure I take the rest so that I can continue working. Another way, another activity that I'd like to tell you is now, has everybody taken down this template of activities and energy consumption? Can somebody just say yes? That'd be a great thing.
I can say yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can see a few
good.
yeses in the chat.
Yes.
Okay.
Another way, now we visualized what takes energy in a day, but we also have a plethora of other tasks to do. So this is a sort of table that we at Breakthrough follow. Now, both the energy budget and this activity table was created by Ishita, that is the founder at Breakthrough. And what it does is it divides your day in 4 different parts. I have the days of my week. I have the essential tasks. Like this, I have to complete in the day. I don't have a choice. Important tasks, on the other hand, are tasks such as I need to reply to an email today because the deadline is tomorrow. Then we have recreational tasks. Recreational tasks is going for a movie, going to meet a friend, doing something that is fun. Working out can be a recreational task for some people. And then lastly, we have something that is relaxing tasks. Now, the difference between recreation and relaxing, recreational is for fun. Relaxing is to give yourself a break. It's to give yourself some time just for yourself, just for your mental energy, and so on. When I give this task to my clients, I give them a maximum limit per box. So you can only put 3 items per box. So that while at the same time you have your energy budget, you're also not making this very unrealistic because imagine I put 15 tasks in important just for a Monday itself. It's not going to happen, no matter how much I push myself. So if everybody can also take this down and if there are any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Okay, shall I start telling you the questions? We have a few.
Yeah, 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 sure.
Okay, so firstly, on energy budget, what level of
Hmm,
detail should this energy budget be, or how much detail should it have?
hmm. So this is my energy budget. It you can add the tasks that you know that you do every day. Like for example, eating a meal or showering, or it could be such as making your bed. It could be things such as personal hygiene. So you can go into extreme detail or you can categorize it differently. Now, when I say showering, I mean everything. I mean everything related to personal hygiene. When I say taking sessions, I mean all of my work. So you can make it as detailed and you can divide your money up accordingly, or you can make it into clubs. That's completely on your choice.
Okay. Can you also summarize in brief the reasons for procrastination? Maybe we could
I'll
take
try.
it towards the end. Uh,
I'll take that towards you. Yeah.
would you say that the priority tables need to be SMART, the SMART goals?
It is similar to SMART goals, but we tend to just follow a different, more easy to understand format for this. Yeah.
Okay, let me see. Mm. Is energy consumption unit relatable with time?
Why not? It can be relatable with time. So, for example, if you know your working out is going to take you 2 hours, then maybe you can allocate more budget for it. If you know that doing your work daily takes more time, you can allocate more money for that.
Okay, that's the number of questions on the tables.
Yes. I'm I'm assuming everybody's taken this format down. If you haven't, you can also let me know. I can always go back to those slides later. Now, I'm going to go on to something that is biohacking your life. Now, when I say biohacking, I don't mean adding a chip in your brain to keep you awake. Please do not worry about that. It's about making certain changes or using techniques that will help you in a longer run. One of my favorite techniques is called Pomodoro. Now, on days where I just don't want to work, what I do is I set myself a timer for 10 minutes. I will do my work for 10 minutes. If I keep working, great. If I don't work, I get up for 5 minutes and I roam around. So that is a system that is called Pomodoro. That is, you work for a certain amount of time, then you take a break, and then you restart with working. What my regular schedule looks like is I work for 25 minutes at a time, then I take a 5 minute break, then I work for 25 minutes again. Now, in that 5 minute break, something to keep in mind is I do not touch my phone. I'm already working on a laptop. I do not touch my phone. I will get up in that 5 minutes. I will grab a snack. I will walk around. I will drink some water. I will go to the washroom. Anything that is far away from your mobile or anything that just resets you a little bit in order to restart your activity. The timings can obviously be adjusted to your preference. Another very important element of biohacking is good sleep. A challenge I think most of us face. I personally face this a lot. I mean, getting more than 4 hours of sleep is a challenge at some points. A way that I suggest to help with this, and I also suggest my clients a breakthrough, is to create a phone routine. Now, I know that this system exists in Androids where you can change your settings to stop your notifications after a time. My notifications stop coming in after 11 p.m. And what it does is my phone also has this mode where it blocks out apps. So after 11 o'clock, I can't access Instagram. I can't access Twitter. Choosing a time to sleep. Now, why I have it set at 11 o'clock? Because I have a daily aim to go to sleep from 11 to 12 p.m. So I give myself that 1 hour to go to sleep. Doing this makes it a habit. Make sure that I sleep at the same time every single day. Now I set my alarms on my phone. So what I do is I keep my phone really far away and I keep my alarm really loud. Because I'm forced to get up and go and switch off my phone, what it does is I'm out of bed already. I've been forced to walk, and this stops me from snoozing and going back to sleep. Now, the last tip when it comes to sleep is something that I feel is very important, that is investing in a good mattress. I can talk about routines all day long, but the thing you sleep on is also equally important. I mean, a good mattress ensures that you have good sleep and also makes you feel well rested. And most of all, it's great for your back. Now, I've also mentioned meditation on sleep. Meditation, somebody else has raised their hand. Um, Meditation includes things such as yoga. It can include just walking around. Everybody has their own different definition of meditation. And lastly, the most important element is the lights around you. I mean, I'm surrounded by lights. Everybody is surrounded by lights. They are such a big part of your life and a way bigger part of your life than you think. I mean, with proper lighting, your body can adjust, be productive, or be as relaxed. Natural light is very important for your health. It helps regulate bodily functions, plays a vital role in your endocrine and nervous systems, and also helps with the release of hormones such as melatonin, that is the sleep hormone. It can decrease headaches, reduce drowsiness, stress, and therefore more natural light is needed in an office. But One thing about natural light is it doesn't exist after a point. I mean, the sun sets. So proper lighting is adjustable and it's better for your eyes. Now, what I mean by proper lighting, adjustable lighting that allows you to control the level of light, like example, dimming or in, increasing the level of light. At the same time, it helps in reducing glare and improving your mood. Short periods of increased lighting throughout the day, such as after lunch, is possible with adjustable lights, and it also helps you become more happier and helps you to work more efficiently. Lastly, as I said, better productivity. So as the day progresses, you naturally become tired and fall into energy slumps after lunch. So standard lighting, that is your regular white lights, increases tiredness, but lower ambient lighting with higher temperature colors can help you feel more productive and much more better. Now, I'm going to talk about something, a question that I had when I started preparing this PPT and this presentation. And I have touched upon this in the before also. Do all of us have the same 24 hours in a day? I mean, the 24 hours I have as somebody who lives with my parents, I have my food ready, I have all of it ready. It's so much different from the 24 hours somebody who's just married has, somebody who's old has, somebody who lives alone has. So that's a question I'm going to leave you with. Does everybody have the same 24 hours in a day? Thank you so much. I am done. If you have any questions, you can please go ahead and ask me.
Cool. We have a few questions. One is I tried Pomodoro,
Hmm.
but after 25 minutes of work, even a 5 minute
Hmm.
I feel is not sufficient. I get overwhelmed
Hmm.
with that 25
Hmm.
minute. What do I do?
Hmm. You can always reduce your time. So when I started out with Pomodoro, I did 10 minutes, then I did 5 minutes of break. Even though it sounds very unconventional. Start with 15 minutes of work. And if it's not working, you can always get up, walk around. Because the entire point of Pomodoro is not to adjust to a particular time. So if 15 minutes of work is helping you, take a 10-minute break. Then do 15 minutes again. Then take a 10-minute break.
Thanks. I hope that helps. Recently, I have not been getting restful sleep and it is light. What would be your
Mhm.
recommendation for getting a deep sleep as it is directly linked to being productive? And another question
Mhm.
on this by somebody else was how safe is melatonin?
Now, melatonin, the safety of it, I would still suggest visit your physician.
Okay.
But when it comes to other factors on how to get deep sleep,
Yeah.
it would be following the routines that I said, because oftentimes the blue light rays that comes from your phone affects our sleep much more than you think it does. That's why creating a sleep schedule and sleep hygiene is so important, because what it does is it tells your brain, okay, now it's time to go to sleep. Now it's time to stop. And looking at your phone before going to sleep also heightens your anxiety, because everything that you look through, like for example, if I came across a news article, I'm still going to be thinking about it when I go to sleep. That's why that's something you can try. You can try the sleep hygiene methods to better help you with
One late night dinner and all my sleep
it.
routine fails and it gets delayed. How do I handle this?
A way that I always suggest is keep your routine in such a way that it's not very stringent. That's why I give myself 1 hour to go to sleep. I don't give myself 10 minutes. So if you're making a schedule, keep it very loose. So if you have instances of late night dinners, make sure that your schedule is also following you along with that. So if you were giving yourself half an hour to do something, give yourself 45 minutes. Because the more self compassion that you have with your own schedule, the better it's going to become.
Somebody asks, eat that frog. I think they mentioned the book, I guess. How
Mhm.
practical is it for everyone?
I haven't read the book, unfortunately, but I will definitely check it out. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we've answered this. We've answered this. Somebody asks, could you explain the energy table? I think what I
Mhm.
do is maybe if you could share those two slides where you created the energy
Yes.
table, and I'll be able to share it with everyone. Let's
Yes.
Yeah, let's keep this while we are at it. Um,
Yes.
One question was, could you summarize in brief the reasons for procrastination?
Yeah. Procrastination, as I started off, is biological in nature too. So it's often your prefrontal cortex, that is your logical center, fighting against your limbic system, that is your emotional center. Because your logical center wants you to finish the task, but your emotional center is probably overwhelmed. It feels that it has to be perfect, the task has to be perfect. So what it does is it keeps you in that state of paralysis. You can't finish your task. Another thing is perfectionism. Like I mentioned before, if I give myself so much stress on that this has to be done within this amount of time in this certain quality, you're setting yourself up for failure. And that's what happens when that's how society and societal factors also affect you, because the thoughts that keep coming into your head, I'm just not good at this because I'm not finishing this task. So that's one of the causes for procrastination. As much as it is biological, it can also be psychological. This need for wanting your task to be perfect often sets us back more than we think it does. Are there any other questions?
I'm just going skimming through them. Mostly there are questions around uh, any tip that you could give so that I move back to being productive. I keep procrastinating. I wake up around 4 a.m. daily, but I'm unable to sleep late. It is mostly repetitive. How do I avoid this?
You wake up at 4 a.m., but you're not able to. Okay. Could you
Oh,
repeat
okay.
that question?
After I think this person wakes up, he's not able to sleep after that, but he
I
wants to. And
Yes.
how does he avoid this?
Um, Now, again, that question that also could be a lot on how you go to sleep. What are your other factors in your life? As I mentioned, your mattress is also important, and also what kind of food you're eating, because food also has a really giant impact on the way we sleep and the quality of sleep that we get. So, a way that I would tell you is follow the sleep hygiene, try it for a week, see what effects you're getting, what kind of quality of sleep that you're getting. Yeah.
Uh, uh, Please check on the questions about structuring the day or
Hmm.
why work quality increases when you do last minute work. Why does that happen for most of us?
Work quality, that again, I had mentioned it before in a previous slide, that we think that we perform better under pressure. A lot of it comes down to the fact that maybe you know the task needs to be done, you know how the task needs to be done. It's just a matter of actually getting up and doing it. And it it's a variety of factors, because I want the task to be perfect. I know how I'm going to do it. I know why, when it needs to be done, how it needs to be done, but I'm not going to do it right now, because at the last moment it's going to happen anyway. So what it does is we've told ourselves that it's possible to do it at the last moment. So even if it miraculously works out, we will believe that it will always work out working at the last moment. But it doesn't always work. It was eventually going to catch up, because, as I mentioned in that study, we feel that procrastination helps us, but it actually doesn't.
Uh, is it harmful sleeping late in the night?
I mean, it honestly depends on your schedule. Everybody has their own circadian rhythm. If sleeping wake, but you have a more flexible schedule where you can wake up in the morning later, if that's fine, then why not? If it affects the rest of your productivity in the day, then yes, sleeping late could be a problem. Because if you have to go at work at 8 a.m. but you sleep at 3, that's clearly not going to work out for you.
Yeah. Okay, guys, what are we going? So I'm getting a lot of requests around. Could we go back to the energy table? So could I request you to go back to the slide?
Yeah, sure.
Right there, guys, please take a screenshot. So if we even miss out on anyone, we still have it. Yeah. So could you guys take the screenshot so you have it handy with you? Or and also let's stay here for 30 seconds and then the second slide, and let people take screenshot of that too. How can we individuals stay motivated and maintain focus on long term goals despite the temptation to procrastinate?
A question that I often like to ask my clients is, why is your goal there in the first place? What motivated you to make that goal?
Mm.
And what is your ultimate aim? If your long term goal is to maybe now, if your long term goal is to do a PhD, why is it a long term goal in the first place? What would you like to pursue in academia? What is it that you want to do? So, oftentimes, listing down your long term goals and understanding the factors behind it can be very useful to just keep it on a piece of paper where you see it every day. So, it's sort of like a mantra. I want to do this because I have these aims that I want to complete. So, that often will help you. And it's natural to procrastinate because procrastination on its own is not a bad behavior. It just exists. So if you have 1 or 2 days where you're procrastinating, that's okay. But if it becomes long term, that's where the problem starts. Should I change the slide? I think
Yeah,
it's become 30
yeah,
seconds.
you could do that. Another question would be, would you correlate procrastination with speed of decision making? If yes, then how do I improve that?
What do you mean by speed of decision making? If you feel like you're making decisions really slowly, and if you feel like it takes you a lot of time to come to a certain conclusion, then that is something that I don't know enough to answer that question about you. But if you feel like you're taking decisions really slowly, and if you feel like you're factoring in for every different point before you make a decision, I wouldn't say that's quite procrastination. But a way to always speed up decision making is by a pros and cons list. I know it sounds like a really old tale, but having a written down pros and cons list always helps you.
Are there any specific tools or apps that you recommend to combat procrastination or stay organized?
So one thing that I like to do is I'm gonna talk about myself. I like to use Microsoft's to-do list and also Google, because what it does is I have my lists written down. A second thing that I like to do is use alarm clock timers, or there is something called Life at IO. So it's a desktop tool. What it does is it gives you different tools. Like if you like the environment of working in a cafe, but you're working at home or you're working in an office, it will play the audio, it will give you the visual of working in such a place. So I find that these tools help me a lot, because working at different places, or even there are online study with me YouTube channels. So if I see somebody else working, I get motivated to work. So all of this is free, it's online. So you can definitely use these.
I'll request you to put it on the chat closer to the end.
Yes.
We'll take a few more
Yes.
questions. Is it normal to want to sleep more than 8 hours? Is it equal for men and women, the number of hours that we need to sleep?
Now, if you find yourself sleeping more than 8 hours on a lot of time, then maybe there could be an issue with, it's not abnormal to want to sleep for more than 8 hours. I'm just going to put it out there. It's ideal to sleep 8 hours, but I haven't ever found any discrepancy between gender and sleeping hours. I think it just tends to be equal. But if you find yourself low motivated and sleeping more than you usually do, I it's better to get that checked.
Okay. Yeah, I see some questions around. Could you repeat the app names, please? So,
Yes.
Just once you have some time, just type it in the chat so everyone has it handy. Um, a lot of questions are around. I get distracted a lot by watching
Mhm,
Instagram reels. Uh,
mhm.
how do I avoid that? But you mentioned that keep a alarm for your Instagram so it doesn't work.
Yes.
That should. Any book recommendations for ADHD?
Book recommendations for ADHD. I can't recall any at the moment, but feel free to drop me a mail and I will definitely send you some. All of our contact information is on screen. You can use the QR code to visit our website. Yeah.
Cool guys.
Is
We
there
will
any other question?
definitely share recording. There's some questions around. Some people joined late. We'll definitely put the recording on the Luma in a few days. Give us some time. Uh, let's take another 30 minutes. If you guys have any questions, please put it on the Q&A or the chat, and we'll be happy to send it to Amatullah and she'll answer it. Hmm. What is the best way to start a task and stop procrastinating? I think we're just rephrasing all the questions, but I'm just reading it out loud for you.
Um, Again, like I mentioned before, set yourself a timer. So give yourself 10 minutes. In that 10 minutes, all you have to do is the task. If you can't continue the task after 10 minutes, then get up, walk around, change, drink some water, eat something. But if you feel yourself continuing it afterwards, then continue working on the task because that 10 minutes is like a testing period for yourself. Okay, I have to write this paper. All I'm doing is giving myself 10 minutes for it.
How do we identify the cause of our procrastination habits?
That's a very good question. Uh, Something that I often ask my clients to do is write down when you think about a task, what's the first thought that comes in? Are you afraid of how it's going to be? Like again, I'm going to use my own examples. Statistics paper. I want to be great at it. I want to get 100 out of 100. But because I want to get 100 out of 100, I'm so afraid of starting. So give yourself some time. Take yourself 5 minutes. Give yourself 5 minutes. Take a piece of paper. Write down, okay, I have to do task number A. What do I feel about it? Why am I so scared? Do I feel like I don't know enough about the topic? Do I feel that I'm not expert enough? And things like that. So just writing things down helps you visualize it. So once it's on a piece of paper, it becomes real.
Is overthinking related to procrastination?
It definitely can be because once you think so much about a task, overthinking is often also related to anxiety. So if you think a lot about a task and if you think about how to execute it, how to what the outcome of the task would be, it would lead you to procrastinate more. Now, if I'm making this PPT and I feel okay, I'm going to present it to a large group of people, how are they going to like it? Are they going to like the color choices I'm picking? Are they going to like the graphics I'm picking? So what it's going to do, I'm just not going to make the PPT because I'm going to be so afraid of all of these different concepts. Is there anything else?
Yes, I'm just reading the last one. My brain keeps thinking I have to execute a task which will happen in the
Hmm.
future. It happens most of the time when there is a top level meeting or some date that I have to produce the result. Uh, I'm usually scared. Any suggestion? Should I go for therapy?
If this is becoming a very chronic issue, something that keeps happening to you, I would definitely suggest going for therapy. But a shorter term solution is again like a to-do list. If you're so afraid about what the future holds, like I mentioned before, writing down what your thoughts are can be a great way to start identifying what's going on.
Okay, guys, I think this brings us to the end. You have the slide right now in front of you. You guys wish to consult Amatullah as well as Ishita from Breakthrough Counselling. At any point of time, feel free to write to them. You can also visit their website and read more about them. I think you should definitely do that. And thank you so much, Amatullah. We had a lovely time. Thank you for spending
Thank you.
your 50-55 minutes with us. Really appreciate the effort. And thanks for answering all the questions. Some of them were repeated. And thanks everyone who joined and spent your time 1 hour with us. I hope you all had a productive session and we learned a lot. What I'll do is I'm going to share screenshots of the energy tables with you over an email right after the session, and the recording will be up soon. Yeah, thanks again, guys, and see you later.
Thank you, everyone.